Hey, welcome to another Flare Media camera tutorial thing. On today's episode, I thought I'd tell you how to make a 100 megapixel super resolution image using a normal DSLR camera. And I have here my trusty Fuji X-T3 that shoots at about 26 megapixels. I want to show you how we can make a 100 megapixel image by using a process called subpixel stacking. And what subpixel stacking is using the red, blue, and green subpixels, and we're going to take up 20 to 30 of those pictures of the same subject really fast. And we're going to do it handheld. And by using our handheld, we're going to shake just a little bit through our natural body movement. You don't have to intentionally shake. And then when we stack those up, the different pixels, subpixels, are going to sharpen the image. That's going to allow us to create a 100 megapixel or so image, depending on how many pictures you take and what the base megapixels of your camera is. Now, it's a pretty easy process. So all you have to do is get your camera set up for burst mode. And so on my Fuji X-T3, there's this CH setting, and that's the burst setting. And if we come in here to down here to drive settings, I want to pick for my continual high-speed burst of 20 frames per second. But it means we have to have the electronic sensor on. You can see the ES, so we have to have the electronic sensor on. So to do that, we're just going to come down here to shutter type, and you see I already have it selected, electronic shutter. And that's going to allow us to take a whole lot of really fast pictures. And I also have it set, because the Capitol, the Nebraska State Capitol there, is kind of backlit. I've got it set up so that I'm kind of overexposing the front of it. The back is going to get washed out. It's just a bad day to shoot, but you know, you work with what you got. But so anyway, my settings aren't anything special. I do want to keep my burst speed low, so I have it at about 500. So I'm going to adjust my ISO and aperture accordingly so I can get a whole bunch of shots really fast while keeping the Capitol in focus. So really, now all I have to do is sit here, wait for these people to pass, make sure I'm lined up. I've got kind of a nice buffer of this grass right here that I can shoot around, and I'm just going to take a number of pictures real fast. Just 1, 2, 3, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, that's about 30. And that's it. That's all we have to do to get ready. Now, I do always recommend taking a couple different shots before you go back to the computer, because it's a lot easier to take them now than to get back to the computer and realize something got messed up. So I'm just going to tweak the settings just again real fast here to kind of change the exposure. I do have it on RAW as well, so I'm shooting some RAW. Maybe we'll just kind of do something like this, really make sure I'm lined up, wait for the cars to go by, and do another burst. Now, usually I take a picture of my hand in between, but because I'm filming, I forgot. So I have a couple different shots here, so that's all we have to do here. Let's head back to the computer and I'll show you how to process this. So now that we're back at the computer, let me clarify things just a little bit more. We're not actually increasing the resolution. We're not magically pulling pixels out of the air. What we're doing is kind of more like anti-aliasing, where we're going to take pixels and average them out by using the subpixels, the red, blue, and green subpixels. And the fact that we move them just a little bit, this little spot is going to be green in one picture, and it's going to be red in a different picture, or a completely different pixel. We're going to average all of those together, and it's going to smooth out and allow us to scale the image by up to 200%. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you wanted to crop in on a part of the shot without having it get blurry or jaggy, or you want to be able to blow the image up to a larger printable size. Let's say you want to do a poster, but it's also going to make the image look cleaner because we've averaged out 30 some pictures. So we're not magically adding pixels. We're still limited to the pixels of our camera, but it's going to allow us to blow the image up bigger if we want. Now, you may have already seen this process referred to as a noise reduction by stacking. And that's essentially what we're doing. We are reducing the noise, but instead of reducing the noise that comes from a high ISO or low light noise, we're reducing the noise that comes from scaling the image twice as large. So it's the same process, but we're using it to achieve a larger image. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how to do it on both Photoshop and Affinity Photo. Now, if you've never heard of Affinity Photo, it came around 3 or 4 years ago. I first heard about it when the iPad Pro was announced and they were showing off some of the new programs designed for it. And the nice thing about Affinity Photo is not how to pronounce it really fast, but the fact that you only have to pay for it one time. Now, yes, you have to pay for it for Windows, for Mac, and for iPad. And it's about $50 per license, but you're only paying it once. So if you just want to buy it for your Mac, that's $50 instead of having to pay the ongoing maintenance fee for the Photoshop Creative Cloud, which is about $10 a month for just that, or $56 for the whole suite per month. So it's a nice option, and it lets you do a lot of the same stuff. But to start with, I'm going to show you how to do it in Photoshop. Photoshop is going to be faster. There are a few more steps in Photoshop, but the processing is a lot quicker. In Affinity Photo, it ended up taking me about 4 hours the first time I did it. I actually fell asleep waiting for it to finish processing. Photoshop, you can get it done in about 20 minutes. So that's not to say one is better than the other. We'll look at that at the end when we compare the two. But just a heads up, if you have the choice, Photoshop's going to get it done quicker. So let's go ahead and first we are going to look here at the computer. I have my images right here. I'm going to just use the JPEGs because it's smaller and I can process them quicker. I also don't want to use Lightroom. I need to use Lightroom in order to easily work with the raw files. So I'm just going to do this in Photoshop using the JPEGs. So let's open up Photoshop here. And we're going to come here and grab just our first image and we're going to drag that in. There's our first image. And then let's come here and grab all the other images and we'll just dump them on top. And we'll just approve all of these. Now I have 36 pictures in this batch. Now you can get away with probably 20. This is where Lightroom, you'd just be able to open them all up as layers if you wanted to, but I don't want to upload all of those files to my Creative Cloud. Okay, got them all. But you'll see that they are all smart objects. That's what that icon is, except for this background. First, let's unlock the background, but then let's select everything but the background. And we want to come up here to Layer, Smart Objects, Convert to Layers. And in the future, I'm probably going to speed up these progress bars because some of it takes a little bit of time. So if you see something go really fast, it's just that I sped up time. Okay, now you can see that they're all converted to layers. So we're going to come here and select all of them, and come up here to Edit and Auto Align Layers. So this is going to take the layers and stack them on top of each other. We just want to use Auto here. Now with this, the grass is not going to be able to be lined up pixel perfect because the wind was blowing it, but it should line up the capital pretty well. So let's speed this up. Okay, next we need to come and verify that our images are all lined up. So you can do that just by coming through here and clicking the eye, and basically I'm making sure that the capital is not jumping all over the place. I said there's nothing I can do about those bushes. If they're bothering me, I might just have to come and mask them out and just pick a bush from one image to lay on top of all of them. I didn't see any jumping, so I think it's lined up pretty well. So we'll come and turn them all back on. Now we want to, again, make sure we have everything selected and come up to Image and Image Size. And we want to click this Resample and choose Nearest Neighbor, Hard Edges from the list here. And then come up here to make sure it says %. And here we can take it all the way up to 200%. And so what this is going to do is, for each image, it's going to basically double the size. So 1 pixel is probably going to become 4, if math is correct. And it's going to take the nearest neighbor of that image and try to figure out what those four, it's going to interpolate what those other 3 pixels should be. So we're ballooning the size of each individual image layer, and then at the end we're going to merge them all together. So click OK. And if you ever want to justify having 32 gigabytes of RAM in a computer, you can see here that Photoshop right now is using 21 gigabytes, and I'm using 24 overall. Okay, now the image has been doubled in size, so we can come here and make sure that all of our layers are selected. Computer's thinking about life right now. Oops. And then come up to Layer and Smart Object and Convert to Smart Object. So it's going to take all of those layers and convert into one smart object. All right, so that finished processing. Now we just have to save our file. So come up here to File, Save, Save your computer. I want to do a JPEG, and we'll just call it something like Final Image, Save, Full Resolution, yes. Okay, so there it is. So let's first take a look at the image size. Get info. So if we look at right here, 12,544 times 8380. So that's going to be, yep, our 105 megapixels compared to the original one, which is 6240 times 4160. And that's just shy of the 26 megapixels that the Fujifilm can shoot. So now let's take a look at the images side by side. So first we'll load this one up, and we'll use magnet to pop it to the side. And that one. Kind of zoom in here. Okay, so before I zoom in here, let's look at the original. You can see how there's quite a bit of aliasing going on this dome. There's some blockiness up here in the sewer. And down here it's just kind of a mess. This is definitely not a size you'd want to print out or blow up to a 5K screen. But if we come up here, so now you can kind of see what I mean. It's taken that edge and smoothed it out. It's given it like an anti-aliasing quality. And it's taken this blockiness up here in the sewer and averaged it out based on those 36 images. And if we come down here into the windows, you can just see it's just a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. It's something that you might be more willing to print out or blow up. You don't have to go to 200%, you can do 150 or whatever. But you can just see that we didn't gain pixels, like that's what I was explaining, but we definitely gave the ability to zoom in and have it look cleaner. And if we come down here, yeah, let's look at those bushes. So one of the things is anything moving across those 36 shots is going to get averaged out as well. And I mean, I kind of like the fuzziness of those bushes. You can see, whoops, on the original, you know, they're pretty sharp. If it really bothered me, I could come in here and create a mask right around here and just copy an image from the other one and layer it on top of all of this, because everything in the back should line up. Same thing with the flags there, but I kind of like that fuzziness of that. Gives it a little activity, a little motion blur. So let's come and look at this tower up here to the right. If we kind of zoom in on this section. I mean, it looks better. It's not magically, more resolution, but averaging, like I said, it's kind of an anti-aliasing quality to it. And so just the lines on the edges, you can see there's some blockiness over here. This grading looks way better. So it's a pretty neat technique. Doesn't take a whole lot of time and doesn't take a whole lot of extra resources. You can just fire off a burst of photos after you take what you think maybe might be your best photo. You can just go in case you decide, hey, I want to blow this up in the future. So next, let me show you how to do this in Affinity Photo. Let's open up Affinity and close the splash screen. First, we need to go up to File and New Stack. And let's go ahead and click Add. I'm just going to come here and select all of my JPEGs, not the final image from Photoshop. We'll drag those into there so that they're all selected. Again, I'm not doing the RAWs just because processing those would take a long time. Open. This is going to take a moment. Affinity Photo does use a lot more resources. You're going to see that the RAM gets quite large to the point where I started thrashing the first time I did this. And perspective is fine. It's going to automatically align the images here, so it takes out a step from the Photoshop. And fortunately, at this point, the only way we know that something is happening is this loading one document up here. There's no status bar or anything like that, so it took long enough the first time that I was afraid it got stuck, but just stick with it and it'll eventually pop up. All right, that finally finished, and it took about 3 minutes on my computer. If we look, we can see we have a live stack group full of our images. And you can see it's already averaging out all the layers. So it kind of takes out one of the steps in Photoshop because it's already layering them together and averaging them out. And if we look right here, we can see this is how it is deciding how to average it. And if we click on it, you can see right now it's set on median. And if you remember on the Photoshop one, we did mean. So for comparison's sake, I'm going to choose mean as well. And so it's not a huge difference, and you may see you get different results. You can do median on Photoshop as well. And if I toggle back and forth real fast, look in the grass here, you might see some changes. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you see it jumping. And so mean is averaging out, and median, if I remember my high school math, is like the middle most value. I don't know how that pertains to photo stacking, but anyway, we're going to stick with mean for this. And next we need to come up to Document and Resize Document, so we're going to make it bigger. And we are going to, for consistency's sake, choose 72, which is what the Photoshop one was. And unfortunately, they don't have a increase by percent, so I have to type in the same value. And we want to make sure that we click nearest neighbor. So that's going to, again, take the nearest neighbor as it scales up to decide what the new pixel should be, and click resize. And again, there's not a progress bar, which kind of stinks. But here in a second, you're going to see the screen kind of refresh as it redraws the larger image, and that's when we know it's done. So there it was. So we're all done. So we've made the larger image. And just for fun, let's go ahead and take a look at the activity monitor. And yeah, you can see Affinity, well, it was just for a moment using 33 gigabytes of RAM, so more than I have in my laptop. I have 32. Now the fact that this is a live stack already shows that if one of the images was out of alignment, we would see it right now. You can also come in just like we did in Photoshop and verify. You can uncheck all of these and look. But because it's live, if something wasn't lined up, we would see it. And so we don't have to go through and necessarily check the alignment. And if you do find one that's out of alignment, just go ahead and delete it. You have enough other photos to process that just missing one or two isn't going to make a big difference. Now at this point, you could export to a JPEG, and by going up to File, Export, it's just like in Photoshop when you click Save, you can choose JPEG, PNG, TIFF. Here you have to choose Export, so just a little different verbiage. But we could export it right here, and if I do this, I'm just going to randomly click that. What I found was it starts exporting, but I didn't see this progress bar move, and I waited 5 minutes. And so I was concerned that it just wasn't going to happen, or had no idea how long it was going to take. In the end, like I said, it takes about 4 hours, but I didn't wait for this process because I didn't see a progress bar moving. I chose to render out the live stack group into a single layer and then export that out. So if I click cancel and then come here to the live stack group, right click on it and choose merge visible, it's going to start taking all of those layers and turning them into one layer. and then we can save that as a final JPEG. Now I'm not going to click on it because there's no cancel button once you hit that. You click it and you go, unless you force quit the program, which I don't like to do. So I'm not going to click on it, but just imagine 4 hours later, we'll be finished. And by clicking on it, you do see a progress bar actually moving. All right, now that that's finally finished processing, we have this pixel layer here with all of the images merged. If I turn off the stack group layer now, we can go ahead and export this. And I want JPEG, best quality, 100%, export, Affinity export, sure. Save. Okay, so that's going to be up here, and let's just take a look at the info. Yep, same size. It's a 35 megabyte file compared to the Photoshop one, get info. This one's 30, so a little different file size. But let's take a look at the actual image. So let's open the Photoshop one and the Affinity. So right away looking at them, they look pretty similar. It looks like Affinity's gone and removed this. This is where none of the photos lined up. So it was kind of, cropped. I can go in there and crop that out. Looks like Affinity took care of that. But let's zoom in and look at that dome again. So looking at this, again, Photoshop on the left, Affinity on the right. I'm not seeing a whole lot of difference. This looks equally smooth. A little glitch right there. Let's come down here to the windows again. I mean, they're pretty dang close. Let's, come over here and look at this section. Maybe slightly softer on the Affinity one. But yeah, it's nice to know that, processing here. It's nice to know that if you don't have Photoshop and want to just have a photo product, the Affinity Photo is a one-time purchase fee. You can achieve nearly identical results using a different program. Just for fun, let's open it up as a comparison to see just what's different between the two. So to compare the two, let us open up Photoshop. Minimize these down. And we'll drag in our Photoshop image. And then we'll drag in our Affinity Photo image. And we need to turn this into a layer. Layers, Smart Object, convert to layers. Okay, select both of them. Actually, nope, never mind. Yes, select both of them, edit, auto align, line them up. Does this process seem familiar? All right, and then we need to select the top one and change blending to difference. And the more black the image is, the more similar they are, because we're only showing the difference. So you can see the Affinity Photo where it, on the Photoshop one, it got cropped out a little bit. Affinity left it in there. But if we zoom in, you can kind of see the lines, the edges are a little different. One of them is probably sharper than the other, or they're just not aligned quite the same, but overall, the texture and everything looks pretty similar. See a little bit of the outlines of the grass, but I guess what this says is more or less you're going to get the same result if you use Photoshop or Affinity Photo. Photoshop is a lot faster, and I think we saw a couple little areas in Affinity that were slightly jagged. So Photoshop does a slightly better job. But if you don't have Photoshop or don't want to use it, there are other options. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. If you appreciated the information I just shared with you, then please give it a thumbs up. It helps other people find the video when they're looking for this topic. And then if you want to see all of the other tutorials and travel vlogs and adventure type stuff and product reviews I do, then go ahead and subscribe so you get to see when those come out. But until next time, I'm doing what I love. Keep doing what you love. Thanks for watching.